My neighbor demanded I let her borrow my lawnmower every weekend because, "You're younger, you can just cut my grass too." When I refused, she stole it from my shed and claimed, "You weren't using it anyway." I smiled, knocked on her door with the police, and said, "Then let's see if you can mow from a jail cell." I never thought a simple lawnmower could lead to such a mess. Living in a quiet neighborhood in Springfield, Illinois, I enjoyed the peace and the occasional chat with neighbors. That all changed when I had a run-in with Ms. Doris, the elderly woman next door. One Saturday morning, as I was tending to my garden, Ms. Doris approached me with a determined look. "Good morning," I greeted her. "Morning," she replied. "I see you have a lawn mower." "Yes, I do," I said, wondering where this was going. "Would you mind lending it to me every weekend? You're young and can mow during the week. I need it on Saturdays and Sundays." I was surprised. Sharing tools occasionally was fine, but a regular weekend arrangement seemed too much. "Ms. Doris, I understand, but I prefer using my mower on weekends too. Maybe we can find another solution?" She frowned. "You're being selfish. It's just a mower. You weren't using it this morning. I use it according to my schedule. Perhaps there's a rental service or another neighbor who can help." She huffed and walked away without another word. I hoped that was the end of it, but I was wrong. The next weekend, after returning from errands, I noticed my shed door slightly open. My lawn mower was gone. Feeling a mix of panic and anger, I looked around and saw Ms. Doris in her yard, using my mower with a smug smile. Taking a deep breath, I approached her. "Ms. Doris, that's my lawn mower." She didn't stop. "You weren't using it, so I thought I'd put it to good use." "That's not how borrowing works." "You didn't ask me." She paused. "Don't be so uptight. It's just a mower. Please return it when you're done. And next time, ask." She waved me off. Sure. I walked away, frustrated but decided to let it slide this time. However, the following weekend, it happened again. This time, I was ready. I secured my mower in the shed, but later found the lock broken and the mower gone. My patience was gone. I called the local police and explained the situation. An officer accompanied me to Ms. Doris's house. She opened the door, feigning surprise. "Officer? What's the matter?" The officer spoke calmly. "Ms. Doris, your neighbor reports that you've taken his lawn mower without permission. Is this true?" She scoffed. "I borrowed it. He wasn't using it." "Ma'am, taking property without consent is theft," the officer said. Her face paled. "I didn't mean any harm," I added. "Ms. Doris, I tried to handle this amicably. But breaking into my shed and taking my belongings isn't acceptable." The officer nodded. "Ma'am, please return the mower and refrain from taking anything without permission in the future." She reluctantly led us to her garage where my mower was. As I took it back home, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I had hoped for a peaceful resolution, but sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, even in unexpected situations. From that day on, Ms. Doris and I kept a polite but distant relationship. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. Yet I remained hopeful that mutual respect would guide our future interactions. The next few days were quiet. I figured the drama was over. I kept my mower locked inside the shed, replaced the lock with something stronger, and even added a cheap security camera pointed right at the door. Just in case. I didn't trust her anymore. I didn't even care if she saw the camera. Maybe it would stop her from doing anything stupid again. But I underestimated her. One afternoon, I came home from work to find a city code enforcement officer standing in my front yard. He had a clipboard in hand and a serious look on his face. "You the homeowner?" he asked. "Yeah, that's me. What's going on?" He flipped through a few pages. "We received a complaint about your backyard. Something about overgrown weeds and yard waste." That didn't make any sense. I kept my yard clean. I'd mowed just a few days ago. I walked him around back and, sure enough, everything looked fine. Trimmed grass, no trash, nothing out of place. He raised an eyebrow. "Well, I don't see anything worth citing. But we still have to check when we get a complaint. Do you know who filed it?" I asked. He gave me a look like he wanted to tell me, but couldn't. "Let's just say it's someone close by." I thanked him and he left, but I already knew who it was. Ms. Doris. The next week, a second complaint came in. This time it was excessive noise. I'd been running the mower for maybe 20 minutes tops. That was it. Another visit. Another warning. But nothing stuck. Still, it was starting to look bad. Too many complaints, and the city might start issuing fines just to make it stop. I didn't confront her. I didn't want a screaming match in the front yard. That's what she wanted, me to blow up, lose it, make a scene. So I stayed calm. I started documenting everything. I saved the notices. Downloaded the video clips from my security camera. Wrote down the dates. Every visit. Every lie. Then, she escalated. One Saturday morning, I woke up to find tire tracks all over my front lawn. Deep ones, like someone had spun out intentionally. My mailbox was dented. A bag of trash had been tossed in the bushes near my porch. My stomach sank. I checked the footage. Around 3:14 a.m., a car pulled up. The headlights cut through the yard. The car didn't park, just drove over the lawn, hit the brakes hard near the mailbox, then drove off. It was her car. I recognized it immediately. The old silver Buick with the rusted rear fender and the back window with a faded cat sticker. There was no mistaking it. I called the police again. This time, they took it seriously. Vandalism, trespassing, maybe even harassment. While I was showing the officer the video on my laptop, he glanced out the window. Is that her over there? Sure enough, she was standing in her driveway, watching us, arms crossed. When the officer walked over to talk to her, she put on the same fake sweet act. I have no idea what he's talking about, she said. That could be anyone's car. I was asleep. The officer didn't buy it. Well, we have video footage, Ms. Doris. She glared at me over his shoulder. He's just trying to get me arrested. He hates old people. I almost laughed. I don't hate old people. I hate thieves. She turned red. I didn't steal anything. You broke into my shed. Twice. I needed a mower. You never use it. The officer raised his hand. That's enough. Ms. Doris, you're looking at potential charges here. She didn't say anything after that. Just turned around and slammed her door. They didn't arrest her that day. But they told me to press charges if I wanted to. I was seriously considering it. But part of me was still hoping this would stop if I just stood my ground. A week later, she started spreading rumors around the neighborhood. That I had threatened her. That I was unstable. That she feared for her life. I found out when my other neighbor, Tony, cautiously asked me, Hey, did you really say you'd make her disappear? What? No. Where the hell is that coming from? Doris told Sandra, and now everyone on this side of the street's whispering about it. I was furious. Not just because it was a lie, but because people were starting to believe her. I could see it in how folks looked at me differently. Like they were second-guessing what kind of guy I was. So I did the only thing I could think of. I invited Tony and Sandra over, showed them the footage, the complaints, the busted lock, the tire tracks, everything. Their expressions changed as they watched. Tony shook his head. Damn. She's really been gunning for you. Sandra muttered. She's always been a bit dramatic. But this? This is nuts. They promised to help set the record straight with the other neighbors. Word started to spread, this time, the truth. That I wasn't some aggressive psycho, just a guy who got tired of being pushed. But Doris wasn't done. Not yet. A few days later, I came outside to find a notice posted on my door. It was from a local lawyer. Apparently Doris was filing a civil harassment restraining order against me. Claiming I had stalked her, monitored her with cameras and threatened her safety. It was complete fiction. But I'd have to go to court to fight it. And that's exactly what I planned to do. The court date was set 2 weeks out. During that time, I gathered everything I had, videos, timestamps, city complaint logs, statements from Tony and Sandra. I even printed out still images from the camera footage showing her car on my lawn. I wasn't going to let her twist the story. Not this time. But just when I thought I had the upper hand, something new happened. One morning, I came out to check my mail and found an envelope taped to my front door. No stamp. Just my name in shaky handwriting. I opened it right there on the porch. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper. It said, "You're not safe here. Watch your back." No signature. No explanation. Just that. I stared at it for a minute, then looked across the street. Doris's curtains moved like someone had just pulled back. I took a picture of the note, bagged it up, and drove straight to the police station. This time, they didn't shrug it off. It was considered a threat. They filed a report and said they'd send a patrol car through the area more often. The next few nights, I didn't sleep much. I kept one light on outside. Every little noise had me checking the window. Then things got even weirder. A social worker came to my door one afternoon. She looked young, nervous. Introduced herself and said she was following up on a welfare check request. "Excuse me?" I said. "A welfare check for me?" She nodded. "We got an anonymous call that you might be suffering from severe emotional distress and possibly unstable behavior. The caller said you'd been isolating, acting erratically, yelling at people on your lawn, things like that. I just stared at her. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or scream. I invited her in, calmly explained everything: Doris, the lawn mower, the police reports, the court case. I even showed her the note. To her credit, the social worker was professional and kind. After an hour, she said, "Honestly, it sounds like you're handling this better than most would. I'll note everything in the file. I'm sorry you're dealing with this." It was obvious Doris was trying to build a case. One lie at a time. If she could make me look unstable or dangerous, maybe she thought the court would grant her restraining order. Or maybe she was just trying to ruin my life slowly, piece by piece. At that point, I realized I wasn't the only one she'd done this to. I started talking to more neighbors. Some were standoffish at first, probably still believing her story. But a few opened up. One guy, Bill, who lived 2 doors down, said she used to constantly accuse his teenage son of breaking into her garden and stealing tomatoes. Another woman said Doris had once reported her dog to animal control for barking at her shadow. The dog was blind and almost deaf. "She's always been like this," the woman said. "But it's gotten worse since her sister died last year. No filter anymore." I didn't feel bad for Doris. Not anymore. Maybe she was lonely, maybe she had issues, but that didn't excuse any of what she'd done. And now, she was dragging me into a courtroom, hoping to twist the knife deeper. And then, just days before the hearing, her niece showed up. I was in my driveway when a gray SUV pulled up. Out stepped a woman in her 30s, sharp-looking, carrying a bag and a clipboard. She walked right up to me and introduced herself as Jill. "I'm Doris's niece," she said. "She told me there's been a situation." Understatement of the year. I nodded. "Yeah. She's made a mess of things." Jill sighed. I figured. "Look, I'm not here to take sides. I'm her legal power of attorney now, so I'm trying to get a handle on what's really going on. I've been going through her mail, paperwork, everything." That caught my attention. "So, you know about the restraining order?" She gave me a look. "I know everything. Including the complaints she filed. And the one you filed. And the police reports." I raised an eyebrow. "So what now?" "She's not well," Jill said quietly. "I'm getting her evaluated. But that takes time, and meanwhile, you're stuck in the middle of it. I'm not going to ask you to back down. You've done everything right. But if I can help smooth this out, maybe we can stop this before it goes even further." I wasn't sure what to say. Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me thought it might just be another trick. "I'll believe it when she stops making up stories about me," I said. Jill nodded. "Fair enough." But later that night, I saw something that made my blood run cold. I was reviewing old footage from the security camera. I wanted to trim clips for court. I opened one from 2 weeks ago, right around the time the tire tracks appeared. In the corner of the video, just for a second, I saw something else. Another figure. Not Doris. A man. Wearing a hoodie. Lurking by my side fence, just before Doris's car sped off across my lawn. He never came near the shed or touched anything. He just watched. Then walked away. I had no idea who he was. He didn't match anyone I knew from the block. I played it back 3 times, zooming in, but the angle wasn't great. Just a vague outline of someone watching from the shadows. And suddenly, I started wondering if this was bigger than just Doris being vindictive. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat at the kitchen table, the video paused on that dark figure by my fence. I kept asking myself, who was that? What did they want? And why did they only show up when Doris was escalating everything? The court hearing was the next morning. I arrived early, dressed decent, armed with a folder full of printouts, flash drives, and notes. Jill showed up 10 minutes later, alone. No sign of Doris. For a second, I thought maybe she changed her mind. But then she came in, using a cane for extra drama, wearing sunglasses indoors, and leaning into the role of helpless elderly victim. She didn't even look at me. Walked straight to her seat, chin up, like she was walking the red carpet. When the judge entered, we stood, then sat, and the hearing began. Doris's lawyer spoke first. They painted a picture of a troubled old woman, harassed relentlessly by a younger neighbor who fixated on her movements, installed surveillance equipment to intimidate her, and made threatening remarks in person and online. I nearly laughed out loud at the online part. I didn't even have her on Facebook. Then it was my turn. I stayed calm, direct. Showed the videos, submitted the complaint logs, emails, pictures of the damaged lawn and mailbox. I even brought Tony and Sandra, who testified about the tire tracks and how Doris had spread lies through the neighborhood. The judge listened. Watched everything carefully. Took notes. I could tell he was trying to stay neutral, But something in his face shifted when I showed the footage of Doris mowing her lawn with my stolen mower, clear as day. Then, Jill stood up. She asked the judge for a moment to address the court, not as a lawyer, but as Doris's niece and power of attorney. The judge allowed it. Jill's voice cracked. I didn't want to speak publicly. I've been trying to fix this quietly. But my aunt is not well. She's been grieving the loss of her sister and isolating. And it's gotten worse. She's paranoid, angry, and fixated on her neighbor as the cause of her misery. I've found dozens of letters she wrote but never sent. All of them filled with anger. None of them based on anything real. The courtroom went quiet. Doris muttered something under her breath, but Jill kept going. I also discovered a burner phone in her drawer. That's where the fake welfare calls came from. That's how she made complaints anonymously. And the man in the hoodie? He's not just a random person. He's someone she paid. The judge leaned forward. Excuse me? Jill sighed. She hired a man to watch the neighbor, to keep him in line. I found payment records, text messages. I turned them over to the police last night. I felt my stomach drop. I wasn't expecting that. Doris suddenly stood up, gripping her cane like a weapon. You traitor! You little snake! The judge banged his gavel. Ms. Doris, sit down or I'll have you removed from the courtroom. I did what I had to do. She screamed. He's dangerous. You don't know what he's like when no one's looking. He laughed at me. Mocked me. Everyone stared at her. Even her lawyer looked stunned. She turned toward me, eyes wild. You ruined everything. You moved in, thinking you're better than everyone. Just because you've got a fancy mower and your perfect little lawn. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. What could I say to that? The judge called a recess. Security gently escorted Doris out of the room. She didn't fight. She just kept mumbling to herself. In the hallway, Jill looked like she was going to cry. I'm sorry. I tried to stop this before it got this far. I just nodded. I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. The judge ultimately dismissed the restraining order and referred Doris for a mandatory psychological evaluation. No criminal charges yet, at least not until the police finished their investigation into the hired man. But it was clear her reign of quiet terror was over. The aftermath was weird. Some neighbors avoided eye contact for weeks. Others brought me baked goods. Tony shook my hand and said, You handled that better than I ever could have. I kept the camera. I didn't stop locking the shed. And Doris? She was moved out of the house 3 weeks later. Her niece packed everything. No one came to help. No one asked where she went. She just vanished from the street like a bad dream fading in daylight. But the damage lingered. There were still moments when I jumped at night noises. Still checked over my shoulder pulling into my driveway. Trust doesn't come back fast, not after something like that. Jill sent me one last letter. It said, You didn't deserve any of this. I hope someday this is just a story you tell. And not something that follows you. I appreciated that. But it does follow me, sometimes. Not as fear, but as a reminder. People can surprise you. For better or worse. I still live in the same house. Same street. Same mower. The grass grows, the seasons change, and peace, for the most part, returned. But every now and then, I'll catch someone glancing at the shed a little too long, or a new neighbor will ask, What happened to the lady who lived next door? And I'll just smile and say, It's a long story. Because it is. And it taught me this much: being a good neighbor doesn't mean being a doormat. Sometimes, protecting your peace means mowing your own damn lawn, and making sure no one ever tries to steal it again.